A suave super spy with both daddy and mommy issues must use his skills with the cards to play his way out of death in a fancy French casino. His goal? Stay alive and gain victory for his queen. His game? Baccarat. His weakness? Fast cars and faster women. The agent? James Bond. The book? The graphic adaptation of Casino Royale by Jensen and Dennis Calero. And you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit! Hey y'all, this is Kari.
And this is Alexis.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a show about books and drama. Alexis, how are you?
Oh, I am. My allergies are bothering me today. I don't know if you could tell by my voice. It usually gets a little.
Yeah, you sound like you finally hit puberty. That's okay. A couple of friends asked me today, how did Alexis get sick and she don't leave the house? I said, them allergies. What you got? You can't never escape allergies.
No, they find me all the time, wherever I want to be.
Good grief, like the IRS. All right. Well, let's move it along. Now it's time for Society Says, where we share your comments, listeners, with the rest of our Lit Society. Alexis, is there a comment you'd like to share that was particularly lit this week?
Yes. Guess where I went? You would never guess. I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
Facebook. Okay.
Oh, no, I'd never guess.
Go out to Facebook every once and again. That's why I say y'all could go out there if y'all want to. Every once in a while I visit. Anyway, so one commenter commented on 1984. And her name is Brianna Clark. She said, "You ladies made me want to read this now!" Exclamation mark.
Cool.
So to me, that comment is very exciting because we want to encourage reading and, you know, we're making it fun again. We want to make it fun again.
Yeah, we want to.
So for her to say that, I feel like it's a really big compliment. So I thank you, Brianna. We appreciate that very much.
We do. It reminds me of people who listen to the show, and even though they know we've spoiled the plot twist, but they still want to read the book and they still go out and support the authors. So love that.
I do too. So, Kari, is there a comment that you thought particularly litty?
Yeah, this one comes from Instagram, and Michaela listened to our Things Fall Apart episode from season 1. She's all the way in Germany, and she says, just listen to this episode in preparation for a university course. You two are so much fun to listen to. Cool. Thanks a lot and best wishes. Danke, Michaela. Thank you for listening all the way in Germany. Remember, guys, if you want to have your comment shared on the show, message us on Instagram, Facebook, if you like. I guess we go there sometimes. Or leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, along with a comment about why you love our show. And we may share your comment with our listeners. Thank you again to everyone who takes the time to do that. We appreciate you guys. Now it's time for our theme of the week, Alexis.
Uh-oh.
This week, the theme is... Oh, by the way, if you never heard our show, the theme of the week is the section of the show where we discuss something, a topic inspired by the book we're reading. It's one of them days. So this week, the topic is, and just a little side note, if you don't know, whoever chose the book, they don't choose the theme of the week. So this week, Alexis chose the book. She's going to dive deep into the plot. And so I had to come up with a theme to discuss. And the theme I came up with, the real life men who inspired the character James Bond.
Ooh, I like.
Alexis, so many people and their families, and I mean their whole families, then came out and said that their granddaddy and their great uncle were the inspiration for James Bond.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So there are a few out there, and truthfully, like with any author, Ian Fleming probably pulled from multiple real life characters to inform his, over the top James Bond. But we're going to discuss 4 people he without a doubt, drew inspiration from. The first, James Bond. The real life James Bond was not a super spy. He wasn't even a government employee. James Bond was, can you guess?
No, I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
He was an ornithologist, an American ornithologist. So he studied birds, y'all. He was really into birds, which sounds like a beautiful career, by the way. Why didn't I go into ornithology?
I know why I didn't.
Birds are gorgeous. Well, Ian Fleming, who had this large estate in Jamaica, was also a bird watcher and enthusiast. And he had a book titled Birds of the West Indies that was written by James Bond. And Fleming loved the name because it sounded very boring and Anglo-Saxon, a very generic American English name on which he could build all these over-the-top fantastical adventures around. So he didn't want the name to detract from the character. And so he picked it up from James Bond. And now there's a James Bond movie with the skinny James Bond, Pierce Brosnan. So I like the skinny one.
Skinny one. That's funny. Okay, sure.
In one of his movies or his adaptations of James Bond, he is disguising himself as a bird watcher. He's actually reading a copy of Birds of the West Indies, and that's a throwback to this James Bond. Yeah, the second is a man you all have likely heard of named Ian Fleming. So yeah, Ian was probably a bit of a narcissist and decided he based a lot of this character on himself.
Narcissist? Oh, come on.
Like James Bond, Fleming had a love for women, fast cars, gambling, and martinis made in a particular way, shaken, not stirred.
Very particular.
Yeah, he was sometimes cold and reserved, all characteristics ascribed to Bond. So just as Fleming went to Eton, which is a boarding school near Windsor for, I think, boys like 13 to 18, and left early, so did Bond. Just as Eton grew up mostly fatherless because his father died when he was still a young boy, so did Bond. And during the war, Ian Fleming achieved the rank of acting commander in the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve, and so did Bond. Now, Ian Fleming, yes, was a vet, and also like a high-ranking, as we said, acting commander. But he wasn't like in the trenches like Bond is. He was more at the desk. And he created dossiers of different, spies. He kept people in top places abreast of what was going on during the war. And that was his position. So all of these spy stories are spilling into his psyche. And he's writing up the facts, but also probably harvesting adventures for his characters from this real life, from these real life people, if that makes sense. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, that brings us to inspiration number 3. One of Britain's greatest spies of the Second World War was a secret agent who went by the code name White Rabbit. And I'm going to linger here for a while because White Rabbit surrounded himself with beautiful women. Like, men don't like beautiful women. I don't know why folks keep bringing this up. Like, you must be the real life James Bond. You like beautiful women. Come on. Let's aim a little higher.
Is that all it takes?
Yeah, you got to be a philanthropist. I mean, philanderer. Anyway, but the real life White Rabbit also had a series of life-threatening adventures. His rank and name: Wing Commander Forrest Tommy Yeo Thomas. What a name. We're going to call him Tommy.
Name. Okay, please shorten that one.
So when World War II broke out, Tommy, a British subject, lived mostly in France, but joined the Royal Air Force. And after France fell to the Nazis, to German invaders, he transferred to air intelligence. And there he worked on both sides of the line for Great Britain. And he was assigned to work with unifying the French resistance so that they could form a large enough organization to fight for themselves during Nazi occupation. So the White Rabbit, a few key takeaways from him that will sound familiar if you're familiar with James Bond. The White Rabbit parachuted into German occupied France 3 times.
Ooh.
One of these times, and spoiler alert, he got away every time. If they caught him, he got away. Oh, okay. So real quick. In February 1943, the White Rabbit and 2 French resistors parachuted into France and set up a central headquarters for French resistance. After his return to England, the Gestapo sent a huge force of agents into Paris to break up this organization, and the White Rabbit rushed back to France. So he was home safe, but when Nazi forces were breaking up this resistance organization he had helped form, he went back into dangerous territory.
Wow.
And for 2 months, the Gestapo chased him. He then went back to England and persuaded Prime Minister Churchill that enough arms and equipment should be just dropped into France to help out the resistors. And so in February 1944, Churchill was like, yeah, arms and equipment, and you wanted the equipment. We're going to drop you in there again, too. And they dropped him back on the enemy side.
Wow.
3 weeks later, he was betrayed by somebody and captured. For 4 days, he was beaten, whipped, and kicked. Questioning went on for 2 months. Twice he attempted to escape. And for 3 weeks, he was confined to an underground jail, not seeing any sunlight. I mean, 3 weeks is a long time to just be in darkness and to be tortured. But he never gave up his comrades, or, I guess comrades is an inappropriate term to use for World War II, his fellow spies or whatever. And domestic intelligence. He never gave it up. Okay. So after 4 months in solitary confinement, the White Rabbit was sent to a concentration camp.
Oh.
And labeled a dangerous extremist. He was supposed to be exterminated. He, quote unquote, died there.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You got allergies. We talking about this man risking his life, and look at you, can't even hold up to a little pollen. No, I'm just kidding. So he, quote unquote, died in the concentration camp October of 1944, but it was all a ruse. A German overseer helped him, quote unquote, die. He's only dead on paper. He's very much alive and still resisted. Wow. And in exchange, when that overseer was brought to trial for war crimes, the White Rabbit spoke up in his defense. So it was like a quid pro quo kind of. He tried then, the White Rabbit, to save 20 other resistors who were in the camp, but he was only able to save 2 additional ones besides himself. When the whole camp was moved, he bribed another Gestapo officer, and then I think he led a flight of like 20 prisoners across fields and nearby woods, trying to help 10 more escape. 10 were shot. I'm sorry, trying to help all 21 escape, but 10 were shot.
Oh. Wow, what a story.
And it ain't over. So for the next 8 days, right, they're like in the wilderness, he and the others. They're hungry, they're sick, they're just wandering around. Just as he was about to reach the advancing American forces, a German patrol picked him up.
No!
Alexis. And then he successfully escaped again.
Yeah!
Make escape sound easy. I'm gonna need the details.
Exactly. I would like those also, so I can keep them in my folder.
He can't stop escaping. A day later, the exhausted band of staggerers, of escapees, found themselves in the hands of an American outpost, of American soldiers at an American outpost. Don't shoot, they cried. We're escaping prisoners of war. An American soldier told White Rabbit and the resistors who had escaped with him, you guys are lucky. You've just crossed a minefield.
Ooh, what a story.
And then there are other like escapades that the White Rabbit was involved in. Like one time he found himself on a train while he was still undercover, and the Nazis were looking for him. Okay, but they didn't have cell phones. They couldn't just pull up his information on Instagram, so they didn't really know what he looked like. So he on a train with a Nazi that went by the title Butcher of Lion. Oh, so you can guess what kind of man this was.
Oh,
and. So the White Rabbit finds himself on the train with this head Nazi, this notorious Nazi. And what does he do, Alexis? Can you guess?
Escape?
Yes, but before that, he sat down across from him, pretended to be a French local who was for German allies. So this is an English man, right? And although he lived mostly in France, so he no doubt had the skills for this type of character. But he invented a French character that was for German occupation, sat right across from the Nazi and carried on a conversation like, girl, how you doing? Let's eat some cheese and drink some wine.
I would like to watch this movie.
Oh, well, it's out. It's called James Bond. So at the meal, he's still uncertain if they figured him out. But nope, he managed to get away safely when the train reached Paris. He was like, au revoir, homie.
Oh, wow.
And the Butcher of Lion was like, danke and adios. I don't know how to say goodbye in German. So yeah, and it's a lot like that. But that specific adventure mirrors exactly what Bond did in one of Ian Fleming's stories. So that's why people are like, well, this man's incredible life obviously influenced some key details of James Bond. And that seems to be true, including one we read about in this graphic novel where you may remember, it's also in the movie, James Bond sits in a torture chair where they remove the bottom and they like pummel him, his bottoms.
His bottoms.
Well, apparently the White Rabbit went through that.
His manly parts.
For real. Yeah.
That's crazy.
The most striking of all of his experiences was this torture scene that James Bond seems to have directly lifted, that Ian Fleming seems to have directly lifted for James Bond. But why do we think Ian Fleming had anything to do with that he knew the White Rabbit at all? Well, a historian and writer by the name of Sophie Jackson found a memo from May 1945 in which Fleming briefly described to colleagues the activities of the White Rabbit Tommy. So he had to know the details of what this agent was doing so that he could describe it to others. Okay. And it seems clear that, he lifted the story, at least a lot of it. The citation for the George Cross that the White Rabbit earned, and the George Cross is like the highest award given by the British government for non-operational gallantry. And of course, the White Rabbit earned this award. It said that he endured brutal treatment and torture without flinching and showing the most amazing fortitude and devotion to duty through his service abroad, during which he was under constant threat of death. Wow. Number 4, the final inspiration, according to this podcast. There's like, for real, hundreds of people who was like, my great granddaddy once was on a plane. And so that's who he got James Bond from, my great granddaddy. So, but this seems to possibly be true also. So the 4th, an elite English spy working behind enemy lines during World War II. His name, James Charles Bond. Ian Fleming also is very familiar with the activities of James Charles Bond. And even though he says he picked the name from a study, a bird guy.
A birdman.
I forget what do you call him again? Ornithologist. Even though he says he got the name from the ornithologist, this seems like a little closer to the truth. There was an agent named James Charles Bond who went by James Bond. And one day, James Bond took his granddaughter aside and said, "Listen, baby, believe me when I tell you, I'm the real James Bond."
Oh, okay.
Nothing more was said and no questions were asked, according to his family. When that Mr. Bond died, his family decided to put 007 on his tombstone.
Oh, wow.
I could not find anywhere where they were challenged on doing that. And they thought, this is our granddaddy is obviously James Bond. Okay. So they put, 007 on his tombstone. And that's it. Now, there are a lot of people who have wanted to be James Bond after the stories have been written. A few diehard fans include John F. Kennedy, who was a philanderer and drug addict. So that too is mirrored. I mean, amongst other things, I'm not trying to offend nobody, but he was those two things. James Bond also battled with substance abuse and philanthropy. What is it? Philanderism. Listen. And then philanderism. And then also North Korean Kim Jong-un. Oh. And I'm not going to say his name again because I don't want this podcast to be taken off the air. He's like really big into James Bond. That's it for our theme, the real life James Bonds.
Well, that was pretty darn cool.
And I'm going to note my sources for you guys in the show notes. So feel free to pick them up there. Did you have anything to add, Alexis?
Nope. I don't.
All right, my friend. Well, let's take a break.
Okay.
perhaps his inspiration for James Bond?
So, I was going to give author information about Van Jensen, but I knew I couldn't give talk about James Bond without talking about Ian Fleming. So I gathered some information about him as well. And
so let me make a correction then on something I said. This book that we're reading, there are some lines taken from Ian Fleming's original book directly. However, this book is written for the most part by Dennis Calero with illustrations by Van Jensen, right?
Right. No, okay. Van Jensen wrote it. Calero is the artist.
Is the illustrator.
Illustrator, yeah.
Okay, sorry. There we go. Okay. Please, madame, continue.
Okay, so Ian Fleming, we got a lot of information about him. A bit of information about him from Kari, but he was a British writer, journalist, and naval intelligence officer. He came from a wealthy family. He had several jobs before he started writing. He participated in the Second World War. His wartime service and career as a journalist provided much of the background detail and depth of the James Bond novels. James Bond is an officer of the Secret Intelligence Service known as M16. Bond is also known by his code name 007. He was a commander in the Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve. And Casino Royale is Ian Fleming's first novel, and it was published in 1952. The Bond stories rank among the best-selling series of fictional books of all time, having sold over 100 million copies worldwide. Now, let's talk about Van Jensen. Now, Van Jensen is an author, a copyright, and editor. He specializes in creative marketing and brand innovation. He was born and raised in western Nebraska, farm country. He's been writing and drawing since he could hold a pencil. He graduated from University of Nebraska-Lincoln with a journalism degree and started working for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette newspaper in Little Rock, Arkansas. Eventually, he would become the crime reporter for the paper. And this job included going to crime scenes. Sometimes he would get to the crime scene before the police. He'd also call the coroner to find out if anyone was murdered overnight. He wrote about murders, robberies, car crashes, fires, everything crime-related. Jensen broke into comic books in 2009. He would then go on to write some of the biggest characters in comics, including The Flash, Superman, and Wonder Woman. In 2018, he turned Ian Fleming's debut novel into a graphic novel with the help of Dennis Calero. Jensen is known for creating fiction that combines mind-bending genre concepts with deeply emotional, character-centered stories that have earned praise from fans and critics alike. His work can be thrilling, hilarious, or terrifying, but it's always heartfelt. In 2016, Jensen was named a comic book ambassador by the U.S. State Department. In that role, he traveled internationally to work with students and refugees, teaching them to share their stories through the medium of comics. In 2018, he created a comic book biography about Stacey Abrams. Jensen,
what?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He did. Jensen has worked as a writer and director in film. He had filmed several short films and music videos. Anything you like to add about our authors, Kari?
Whose story is more compelling on the screen? Mission Impossible, Ethan Hunt, or James Bond in all his iterations?
Oh,
or like Bourne.
Oh, but I like them all. I'm gonna say, I've been a follower of James Bond for so long, I can't help but say him.
Okay, I'm gonna give my answer in the verdict, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So, thank you for that. No, you're not. Who cares what I think? Me too, girl.
This is a whole podcast. We get to say what we think. Okay, stop it.
Well, thank you for that context. That was really surprising. I was surprised that went from Nebraska to Stacey Abrams. So thank you for that. Now, can you please give us a brief, no spoiler synopsis of this version of James Bond?
Bond, James Bond, a chain-smoking secret agent must prevent Smersh agent Le Chiffre from winning the $50 million in Baccarat he needs to pay back money to the Smersh organization. Kari, who do you think would love this book?
Yeah, if you hate women and you love violence, I think you'd love this book. And what about you, Alexis? What were your first thoughts when you came across this book at the library?
Well, I've always enjoyed, maybe you don't know, but I'm going to tell you, I've always enjoyed the James Bond series. In fact, in 2020, I started watching them in order of
I'm learning
release.
this about you, and this is making me look at your romantic choices with side eyes. Everything is clear. Okay, go ahead.
So when I was looking for books for the new season, I said, you know what? Why not read Ian Fleming's work from the beginning? Get in there. So that's what I did. I chose this book. That was it.
This is not Ian Fleming's work. Why did you go for this and not one of his books?
I did pick his book. I had that on the side. But then I went to the library to pick up the book, and I was perusing the shelves, and I saw this, and I was like, hey, I want to read this one. So,
and we've been looking for a comic book to get into. So, although this isn't a series, this was one and done. They did this, and then they was like, moving on to the next whatever. All right. Well, thank you. All right. Well, now that we have all of that wonderful information, it's time for our deep dive, spoiler-filled deep dive into the plot of this version of James Bond, Casino Royale. Alexis, take it away.
All right. So the story begins in a casino. Men and women are playing the tables. Yes, yes. And as they're there, James Bond is playing as well. Now, I don't remember what game he's playing, but I know he's playing because he liked to gamble. He's a gambler.
Can you get into the glamorosity of casino life?
I cannot. I don't know how to even tell that. The glamour
it's
of it.
3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, you got to read this opening line. It is a great opening line. And that is from Ian Fleming.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely
I think it's
right out of
fantastic.
here.
But it don't sound cool like they try to make me feel like it is. Sound like all y'all need to be in bed. This is sad.
Oh, let me get to it.
Okay. Although when I was younger, my parents used to love touring casinos. They have never gambled a day in their life. There's just a generation that thinks they're glamorous and they're full of endless seafood. Yeah. And
I think
gilded,
that's it. The
crown
drinks and the free seafood. Not the all you could eat seafood.
Yeah,
stuff.
it ain't free, but it's like $10 for all the shrimp and lobster you want.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah. The scent and smoke and sweat of a casino are nauseating at 3 a.m.
I like that line.
I bet they are. Can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine? So, but that is indeed the scene. So he decides, look, I'm tired, and I usually respond to my body when it's tired. So I'm going to go to the room. So he goes up to the room and he left a trail, because he's in business. He's working. So he want to make sure his room hasn't been
tampered with. Yeah, he's gambling partially for fun, but mostly because he's a spy. And he's doing this on a mission.
Yeah. So he gets back to his room and he checks all his little spots. He's got a little talcum powder on the door. He's got, it was one other thing I can't remember.
A single hair from his head. And I was like, I'm going to use some of this for the next time I stay in a hotel.
By yourself.
So for real, right? So he's got talcum powder, like you said, on the closet, basically doorknob. And then in the drawer where he's keeping some of his important documents, he's taken one single hair and placed it just so if it's disturbed, he knows someone has opened that door.
That's a lot to remember. I would have took the hair and then forgot I did it. Like, why is
am I
this hair
holding
here?
This one kink?
They didn't clean this room up right.
It'd be my hair, exactly. Exactly.
So anyway, he checks out the room and he's like, it's time to go to bed. But before he goes to bed, he's kind of thinking about what's happened over the last couple weeks. He thinks back to 2 weeks ago when he was given this assignment.
So now we're doing flashbacks.
Yeah. So an agent from another station has this big file and he wants M to see it. Now, M is the head of the British Defense Ministry and you need to present your cases to him if you want him to do some, put his people on it. So this one guy, he presents his case to him and this case is about Le Chiffre. Le Chiffre is an agent of the USSR, but his predilections are his Achilles heel, it says. And one of his mistresses is controlled by Station F. and that's within the British Defense Ministry. And she shares that Le Chiffre seems to be on the brink of financial crises. Okay. Le Chiffre is a heavy smoker, about 45, also uses Benzodrine inhaler, and carries 3 ever-sharp razor blades on his person. Like one in
I
his
thought he was
hat.
addicted to cocaine.
Well, Benzodrine is a drug that they use, but they've used it for so many purposes. It very well could be.
Okay.
But it is an inhaler drug. Okay. So this guess it's the dossier, right? That it's telling the story about him.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the story. In 1946, Le Chiffre brought control of a chain of brothels in Normandy and Brittany with some 50 million francs.
Brittany?
Entrusted to him by Leningrad Station. So that is the organization. We didn't get to that. Smersh that he works for. They got like this spot that they want him to work, and he's like the treasurer for it. So he's handling the finance. He's got access to all the money. So he takes this money, this 50 million, and invests it into these brothels, right? And
I'm thinking he's trying to clean the money, like he's trying to launder it.
No, he just using it and investing it, and he made a bad investment choice because one, he's tempted by this woman, and he saw this as an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he is trying to clean it. That is possible. But then,
because it was legal at the time that he invested it.
Yeah, so these organizations are legal. So 3 months after his purchase, and a pimping law was enacted.
3 months later.
3 months later.
All prostitution outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
All his money down the drain.
Down the drain.
And not his money, Smersh's money.
Right, because he took it out of the company account. That's right. And so they closed them all, and the police was now on his trail. They ended up closing about 20 or more of his establishments. And so now his initial investment, that 50 million, is gone. Now, Leningrad, the section that he works for, they're not suspicious, but it does seem like the head Smersh. Now, Smersh is the...
No, Leningrad gave him the money.
So Leningrad is like the...
Overseers of all this?
A subgroup of Smersh.
Oh,
so essentially all Smersh's money. And so Leningrad is a station, and he's a treasurer of the money for that station.
Got it.
That's what it sounds like to me. So who is Smersh, you ask? Yes, it's a Russian organization, which is a combination of 2 words. And it's Smirt and Shivanan, which means...
Hodosho. Mm-hmm.
That's the Spies. Now, Smersh is headquartered in Leningrad, okay? That's what it is. And its task is to eliminate treachery at home and abroad. It's the most powerful and feared organization in the USSR. During the war, it was an execution squad. Now, it has 100 operatives, and they're divided into 5 sections. Counterintelligence, operations includes executions, administration, investigations, and prosecution.
Auf Wiedersehen. That's goodbye in German.
I'm glad that came to you. It's perfect timing.
Yeah.
Only one Smersh operative has fallen into the hands of British intelligence, and he ended up committing suicide with a coat button compressed of potassium cyanide during interrogation. It's believed that Smersh is responsible for at least 6 British double agent deaths. Okay. Every effort has been made to improve the British intelligence knowledge of this powerful organization and to destroy its operatives. So Le Chiffre doesn't realize, because he has now taken his 50 million francs and he lost it. He don't realize that his life may be in stake. So he's withdrawn 25 million francs from this treasury. And so he's now living in a small villa near the casino. The casino is Casino Royale, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Le Chiffre says his plan is, okay, I'm going to stay in this little villa near the casino, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to try to raise this 50 million francs by gambling. Of course, that's the answer, right?
Terrible idea.
You lose
Everyone's
money.
with it.
Get out there and gamble until you get the money you want.
Yeah.
So M is like, okay, I see this as a challenge. I think we can do it. And I know just the man who can. It's 007. That is James Bond. And I'll connect him with Matthias, someone he's worked with previously. And so James like, okay, well, I could do this, but there's some holes. I mean, I'm bound to lose some money, but I could do it. And M is like, I already know you can do it. That's why I'm sending you on the job. I done thought about all the holes in here. Just go on and do the job. So he tells them before he leaves the office, you know what? I'm going to send somebody else with you because 2 heads are better than 1. And they'll be a good one. I'll send you someone good to be sure of it. All right. So flash forward to the next day when Bond wakes up from, sleeping with the gun under his pillow and having checked the room. He wakes up the next morning and it's time to connect with Matthias. And he learns when Matthias arrives that his cover is blown. There are
Who is
people.
Mathis? Right?
Is that what they call him in the book?
Yeah, Mathis.
Okay.
That's his name. Mathis.
It is, but I think they say it differently in the book.
How they saying it in the book? Anything they say in the book is you saying it because it's a book. Go ahead, call him Matthias, girl. Go ahead. Don't listen to me. It's Mathis, though.
What you call him?
Mathis. His name is Mathis. Even in the movies, it's a Mathis.
I struggle with that word the whole book.
You must hate math like I do. I can't even pronounce it in a name.
Okay, so the next day, he connects with Mathis. Apparently that's his name, but we'll go for it. I'm not going to fight about this, okay?
Renee Mathis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He learns his cover is blown. Mathis tells him, look, your cover is blown. So Mathis is coming in undercover as well. He's coming in, he's got a radio or something. I don't get why he's bringing this radio in, but he's bringing in a radio. Mm-mm.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. So James Bond opens the door and he's like, Mathis like, hey, shut up.
Yeah.
And so then Mathis puts on like a character and pretends to be some guy from like, I don't know, the radio place, a utility. And so he's like, Monsieur, and Mathis is French. So Monsieur, I have the radio you requested. Everything seems to be up to notch. And James is like, okay. And then Mathis turns up the radio real loud. Because with the radio loud, it blocks the transmission of the bug. Go ahead.
Right. That part I get, but is that the whole purpose for bringing the radio in?
Yeah, it's just to mess up that transmission so that when they turn it on, they can speak freely.
Okay.
And then they turn it off and pretend again that he's from the radio company or whatever.
Okay, so I got that it was a ruse.
Yeah.
But I thought like he was like in the radio business and he sold him a radio.
No,
like,
he's
why?
in the government business. He's a spy too.
I mean, but why did he bring the radio? So the whole purpose of the radio was to hide the communication. Mm-hmm. And I do understand that. I'm familiar with that. Yeah. Okay. But I thought it was more to it.
Not that I gather, maybe, but
okay.
I see it.
So like Kari said, the people upstairs are listening. It's a couple, an older couple that have been induced to serve Smersh. No, Le Chiffre. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then Mathis tells him, your partner is a woman. She cute and everything, but it's a woman. And he's like, you know what? I don't even like women like that. They just get in the way and stuff. That's what Bond said. He was like, why? They only good for my enjoyment after I solved the crime, you know, after I fixed everything.
This is an accurate depiction of the character James Bond. This is what he feels.
The woman's name is Vesper Lynn, okay? And he expected to meet up with Mathis later, where he would be introduced to Vesper. After they meet up, Bond decides, well, you know, she seemed cool enough.
She's cute, okay? And just backing up a minute, I want to read this line that is in Bond's head. He's talking about all the reasons why he hates women. And then he says, And then there was the pest of the girl. Women were for recreation.
That's what he has said.
Not for business. They're for recreation.
Mm-hmm.
And then he calls her out of her name.
Out of her name.
In his head. And then he thinks about the couple upstairs who are secretly listening to him. And he calls the woman of that couple out of her name.
Yes.
And his rage for women borders on violent for no reason.
For no reason. I was going to, in my intro, I was going to say, with a lust and hatred for women.
Lust and hatred. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He fits the profile of a potential assaulter.
Yes, he does.
That's James Bond.
But actually, and we could get into this later, it's some of the movies. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
if you sick of woke culture, you're going to hate this episode. Because I was wide awake reading this. Okay, go ahead.
So after they meet up later, but Bond decides he can work with her, like I said, and he makes plans to join them for dinner. He says, Mathis says, why don't you invite Vesper for dinner and that'll just look right because you can't be this, hunk of a man and not have a woman on your arm. It looks better that way. So go ahead, let's get together. So Vesper, who's supposed to be working with Mathis in the radio business, okay, but she's also an undercover agent.
Yeah.
So Mathis and Vesper kind of walk away. They go their separate ways, and Bond goes another direction. But he eyes two men in straw hats behind a tree, and suddenly a bomb goes off.
When Bond left the bar, he walked purposefully along the pavement flanking the tree-lined boulevard. He was hungry. The day was still beautiful, but by now the sun was very hot and the plane trees gave a cool shade. There were few people abroad, and the two men standing quietly on the opposite side of the boulevard looked out of place. There was something rather disquieting about their appearance. Details. Straw hats, brims obscuring their faces. Dark, hot-looking suits. Body size, small, squat. Matching camera cases, possible weapons inside. By the time Bond had taken in these details, he had come to within 50 yards of the two men, when Red Man seemed to give a short nod to Blue Man. Just then, Blue Man seemed to fiddle with his case. Bond could not see exactly, blocked by the trunk of a plane tree. Then, despite the protection of the tree trunk, Bond was slammed down to the pavement by a bolt of hot air, which dented his cheeks and stomach as if they had been made of paper. He lay, gazing at the sun, while the air went on twanging with the explosion as if someone had hit the bass register of a piano with a sledgehammer. A ghastly rain fell on and around him, pieces of flesh and shreds of blood-soaked clothing mingled with branches and gravel, twigs and leaves. There was an obscene smell of high explosive, of burning wood, and yes, that was it, roast mutton. Of the two men in straw hats, there remained absolutely nothing but red traces on the road and on the pavements and against the trunks of the trees, and there were glittering shreds high up in the branches. It was Mathis who got to him first, and by that time Bond was standing with his arm around the tree which had saved his life.
Bond is protected by a tree, this big tree stump, so he survives. And it's clear that the bomb was intended for bomb.
The bomb was for Bond.
That's correct.
But Bond survived. The straw hat men, not so much.
Not so much. So the chief wants him dead. Okay. So Bond stops. He goes back to his hotel, kind of gets all cleaned up, because it was a bomb. It exploded. And
he just escaped death.
Yeah. So he cleans up. And then he goes back to the casino, and he's kind of sitting around at the roulette table and watching it, and he likes gambling. He's enjoying it. He said there's something. He said he said no guesswork in it? It's I can't remember the thought he had.
Basically, don't bring emotion into it.
Yeah, there's
try to be as logical as possible when gambling.
Yeah. So Bond was the ideal candidate really for this assignment because he is a gambler. He's always been a gambler, and he liked that you are all that's responsible for what's happening. You get to make these choices. It's not about luck. It's you making decisions that lead to your wins. And you're responsible in the end. And he realizes that the more you put into gambling, the more you get out of it. So at the roulette table, he happens to meet the American CIA agent, Felix Leiter. So if we think back to the beginning, when he was reminiscing, initially, when the case was brought to M, they said, if you don't want to do this, M, we could give it to the Americans. They'd be glad to get in there and make a fool of Lashif. So they ended up bringing their CIA agent in anyway. They're going to help out because everybody wants to get this organization. Vesper meets Bond, goes to Bond's room for dinner, and they head downstairs. Bond then explains the rules of the game of the evening. Vesper also takes this opportunity to kind of explain what happened with the bomb situation. Explains what happened with the bomb situation. I'm not going to go into it. He eventually explains to her the rules of the game of the evening. This Baccarat game that him and Lashif and a lot of other high-profile players are going to join in. This is a high-stakes game. The object is to hold 2 or 3 cards, which together equal 9 points, or as nearly to 9 as possible. If the cards add up to 8 or 9, they're natural unless there is an equal or a better natural. So if there's a 4 and a 5, that's a natural 9. If there's a queen, that doesn't even count. You can't even use that. You're looking for really natural 9s, 7s, or 1, 7 and 2, 5 and 4. Those are winning cards. That's what you want to have. And if you have a natural, if you have a natural 9, nothing else can beat it. So
like a 7 and a 2 is a natural 9.
Yeah. So after dinner, now he had dinner with Vesper, and he then walks away and heads over to the high table with Vesper, because now over the past few days where he's been gambling, he's made money. He's made like 3 million francs. So he's in a good position to play in this high stakes game. There's no questions asked because they've seen his progress. They know he qualifies to play with the big boys, if you will. So when he gets into the high table room, the stage is kind of set. Everybody's there except for Lashif. And he kind of eyes all his potential players and sees who's going to be in it to win it, who's probably going to fall off at a few. And throughout the story, you can see he's sizing people up, and he's always sizing up situations. And so Leiter comes, and he takes Vesper away. They're going to go play on some other tables until the game gets really popping. They'll come back later. And so the game doesn't even get started till 11 o'clock at night. That's just how they do it. So Bond is glad to be alone again because he's ready for it. He's got to mentally prepare. So he goes and he gets this 24 million. All right. Early on in the book, he had requested dollars from the British government so he could play. He was expecting it. And so now he's got 24 million in hand, and this is going to be his playing money, and this is the same money that matches what Lashif has. All right. So let's talk about the game. Well, I can't really talk about the game, but
you did.
So the game gets started. It's underway. It's heavy, slow action. To me it looks boring. I'm sure if it was there, it would be exciting. This high smoke-filled room. I mean, when the story started, James Bond had already smoked 70 cigarettes. So he's a big-time smoker. The room is filled with must and smoke, okay? And drinks.
Sweat and nervousness, yeah.
Yeah. So by round 3, James Bond is cleaned out. He's defeated.
Yeah, he has no more money to play with. He done lost all the Great Britain's money that they gave him out of the treasury.
The money. He lost all the money. So which means if he loses this money, they can't beat Lashif. So who's
the whole mission is over.
Yeah, it's like he's done. So at this point, Bond is like defeated. He like, dang, I lost. I can't believe that happened so fast. I'm out of all the money.
I shouldn't have let it come to you. Directly the cards were dealt, I kicked myself. It's only the beginning of the game. You may be right the next time you pass it. If one could be right every hand, none of us would be here. I would be. You don't think I do this for pleasure? As the game went on, uneventful, but with a slight bias against the bank, Bond looked over the spectators. He soon saw Le Chiffre's 2 gunmen. Neither the bank nor any of the players seemed to be able to get hot. But there was a steady and inexorable seepage against the bank, amounting after 2 hours' play to 10 million francs. Bond had no idea what profits Le Chiffre had made over the past 2 days. He estimated them at 5 million and guessed that now the banker's capital could not be more than 20 million. In fact, Le Chiffre had lost heavily all afternoon. He only had 10 million left. Bond had won 4 million, bringing his resources to 28 million. Bond was cautiously pleased. Le Chiffre continued to play like an automaton, never speaking except when he gave instructions in a low aside to the croupier. In the background, there thudded always the hidden metronome of the casino, ticking up its little treasure of 1% with each spin of the wheel and each turn of a card. A pulsing fat cat with a 0 for a heart. Then, the whole pattern of the play suddenly altered. The Greek lost the first coup of 500,000 francs, and the second. He passed the third time, leaving a bank of 2 million. Carmen Delane at number 2 refused it. So did Lady Danvers at number 3. Mrs. Dupont promptly lost to the banker's natural 8. Un banco de 4,000. 5 points marginal, refused third card, position, dangerous. 4 points, third card. Set à la banque. Un banco de 8,000. Bond lost again to a natural 9. In 2 coups, he had lost 12 million francs. By scraping the barrel, he had just 16 million francs left, exactly the amount of the next banco. Le jeu est fait. King and ace, 1 point. Prospect of victory, 13%. A card. Queen and 5, 5 points. The table was absolutely silent. Ace and 5, 6 points. Prospect of victory, 65%. It was a good card, but to Bond, it was a difficult fingerprint in dried blood. The banker must draw a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Drawing any other card, he would be defeated. It was, unnecessarily, the best, a 4, giving the bank a count of 9. He had won, almost slowing up. Bond was beaten and cleaned out.
So then, it's the croupier. Is that who it is? The banker? The croupier?
Sure.
Okay. So the croupier,
who walks over to him with an envelope?
Yeah, walks over to him with an envelope and he hands it to him. Bond is thinking like, oh, they getting ready to pull me out the game? How they know my finances? But they do. They know your finances. So,
yeah.
And actually he's handing him an envelope. And in the envelope is a note from the Americans. Like, we got your back. Here go 32 million. Get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Bond is saved. He could like play the next round, okay?
And there's a potential to win everything back.
Yes, he could get all the monies, y'all. And so, but this opportunity, this 32 million, this is his last chance. He's not going to get it again. You got me? So the game is on. And as the game reshifts, the stake is now 32 million. And Le Chiffre does not seem to be moving. Now, Bond didn't really know how well or how poorly Le Chiffre had done. He had an idea of what he had, but he wasn't completely sure. But Le Chiffre wasn't moving, which means he must have been doing pretty well. And he doesn't know, but Le Chiffre also doesn't know what Bond has in this new envelope. But
yeah, and just for context, the banker has made an announcement to the floor that there's a $32 million bet on the table. And so there's people crowding around it. And this is it. Like, everyone's sweating. The tension is high.
Yes. And Le Chiffre knows, he does know that Bond's resources are dwindling. So he honestly doesn't expect him to play, but he doesn't know what's in that envelope. And so as people start to gather around the table, the croupier says to Bond, you know what? Is you in or not? Is you in? What you got? So Bond is like, I'm all in. And as the croupier counts Bond's money, Bond catches an exchange between Le Chiffre and his gunman. who is now standing directly behind Bond.
But you can't bring a gun in a casino, Alexis.
Yeah, you can't. So how did he get in there? Well, he had a cane, y'all. And he
Like
had a note.
cripple, man.
He had a note from the doctor saying he needed a cane. So he brought a cane in, and this cane had a gun, and he put this gun into Bond's back. And he tells him, this is a gun, and it can blow the base of your spine off without a sound. You'll just appear to have fainted, and I'll be gone. So withdraw your bet before I count to 10. And so he started counting.
Deux, trois,
Trois.
quatre, cinq.
The gunman begins to count and gets to 7 when Bond, he reclines in the chair.
Yeah, he like pushes his chair back at an incline really quickly. And the man, who actually is kind of crippled, it turns out, falls to the ground. But so does Bond.
Yeah.
So it's like an embarrassing scene for everyone involved.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Because everybody, Bond done fell, the man done fell. It's just a hot mess of a situation. And so Bond is helped up. He actually gets the cane gun out of his possession. And the man kind of goes away quietly. And the croupier and the chef de partie, they want to avoid scandal at all costs. So they check to see if Bond is okay, and he is. And he said, "Would you like to withdraw? And we can have a doctor fetch." And he's like, "No, I'm fine. It was a momentary faintness." And he kind of, "Excuse me, it's okay. I'm fine. I am ready to play."
Back to the 32 million.
That's
please.
right. The cards are drawn, and Bond is desperate to win because this is his only chance. 32 million is all he has, and 32 million is on the table. There are no more miracles left. Le Chiffre also is desperate. Bond has 2 suits and draws a 9 of hearts. Now, the 9 of hearts is referred to as the... I forgot. Hold on.
As a whisper of love, a whisper of hate.
Yes. Exactly. Whisper of love, whisper of hate. Because it could go both ways, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And Le Chiffre has a 4 and a 5. He thinks he's going to win. Bond already had the 2 suits, so the face cards. It's not going to happen. Le Chiffre is confident he's going to win because he's got this natural, remember that natural 9?
Mm-hmm.
The bank loses. Bond shows his card. And Le Chiffre is disgusted because he lost.
Yes. So Bond has these 2 queens, which equals 0. So his 9 stands.
His 9 stands. And the spectators all look at Le Chiffre as if he carried the smell of death. That's a lot to lose. 32 million francs.
That don't really belong to you.
That
You
don't
probably
belong
need-
to you. Woo. And as Bond looks down and looks up again, Le Chiffre is gone. So it's like, what? Where did he go?
Mm-hmm.
He went somewhere, y'all. So Bond is like excited. He's like, yes, I win.
He's like, we're Vesper. Time for recreation.
Hello? That's what he had said.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's invited to the casino director, right? First, because he got to get this check for 40 million francs, right? He needs to get paid out. So he has a little cash and he got this 40 million franc check. So he's pleased with his success and he wants to celebrate. Vesper is up for celebrating, but Leiter is ready for bed. He's like, you know what, you guys, let's do this in the morning. I'm going to bed. Vesper is like, yeah, let's go to bed. Let's have a drink and go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go and they sit down. Well, first Bond takes his money up and hides the check and the money and then in the hotel room, and then he comes back down so he can have.
So I'm sorry. Bond picked up the check from the casino.
Yep.
Goes back to his room alone.
Right.
Hides the check.
Yep.
He then meets Vesper for a drink,
Right.
and she's acting weird.
Yes. When she comes back down, he's like, okay, all right then, lady. But okay, let's have this drink. So they have this drink, and then she receives a note from the waiter. I'm going to say it's from the waiter, but it could have been from somebody else. But it's hotel people brought her the note. And Vesper said, oh, it's only Mathis. He wants me to meet him at the entrance hall. So she gets up to leave. And Bond is like, wait a minute. Mathis don't talk like that. Mathis know me. He would have wanted to talk to me too. So Vesper is already gone and got up. So he heads out to the entrance hall and he doesn't see Vesper or Mathis. He then hears a scream and a car drive away. And as a car drives away, he sees a small black object thrown from the vehicle and he immediately identifies it as Vesper's purse. He opens it and he finds the note that Vesper received. And he said it's an obvious forgery. He jumps into his vehicle and tries to follow the car. Now, he doesn't really know, but he's using his agent senses and knowledge and lights and figures out where the car is, okay? And so he follows this assumed path at the same time, cursing Vesper for being a woman and being with him, because what else happened with women? They always getting into trouble and need to be saved. And then he mad at M for sending her on a job.
So he's chasing Vesper going, I don't care if she die or not.
That's right. He like, you know what?
Chasing her, so.
If I catch up with this vehicle and we have a shootout and she gets shot, that's too bad. If I don't catch up with the vehicle, I'm going to go back to the hotel and go to bed, okay? The girl just going to have to take it. That's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. That's what he has said, y'all. So he drives along, and as he's driving along, he does see the car, but he also noticed a strip of steel spikes, and before you know it, he on top of him. The car's airborne, and he done come crashing down. It's a couple men standing outside the car when it crashed. They grab him out the car and put him in another car. And he assumes it's Vesper next to him. And what it is she in the car with her dress over her head. They got her tied up like a chicken something. They said her dress is over her head and tied up. So, so she's sitting in the car, her legs, bare, but the thing over her head. And she might be a little knocked out also. All right. So he called her a fool. He's like, ugh, how she get caught up like that? Anyway, they arrive at this other location, right? That's nearby because Bond had already kind of cased the area when he first got there, so he knew it's not too many things nearby that he could be taking. And so it's actually like a little farm or something. And so as Bond is being walked to this new location, he attempts to get away. He kicks one of the gunmen in a sensitive spot, but he's then quickly overtaken and then put into another room where somebody tells him to strip, take off your clothes, get naked, fella. Yes.
Ooh,
that's what
he
happened.
over there judging Vesper. They said, you gonna get actually naked.
You gonna get actually naked. Turns out it's Lashif. And Lashif said, well, before that happened, they said you could play around and resist all you want to, but we will break every one of your fingers. We don't care nothing about your health and how serious. Or
we don't know you. We don't care about your life. Just keep that in mind, please.
We don't care. So act up if you want to. Act up.
And before then, he had asked for one of your grandmama chairs. Everybody grandma got one of these chairs with a mesh bottom and mesh back. And he had the mesh bottom cut out.
He cut out the mesh bottom, y'all. So now Bond is naked and it's this chair right there. He like, sit there. That's what you sit right in that
ain't
chair.
No Bond. I don't care, Bond. Sit down.
Sit down in there.
Oh, man.
And do y'all know Lashif proceeded to torture this man in his private parts.
Alexa. So it's not funny.
But why
he had this like, because you're so immature. So he had this like metal thing on a rope, and he'd swing it in between Bond's legs to beat him from the bottom up. And so Bond is naked, getting a factory demolished.
Right. With the little chuckle. Okay. I heard that. Anyway, that's happening. He is being brutalized and the pain is so bad.
And apparently this is what the White Rabbit might have went through.
Yikes. The pain is so bad that Bond actually passes out. And that's like a relief because
a few times.
Yeah. He passes out multiple times. And I was like, oh, I do remember this part from the movie. Yeah, he passed out in the movie too. I mean, that's pretty painful. Anyway, Lashif tells Bond
imagine
when he comes to.
Is it like cramps? Because
nope.
You know how men be. I guess it's probably worse. Maybe.
I'm gonna say no. Also,
you're gonna say it's not worse.
I'm gonna say also it's not worse. Yes.
So what Bond is going through, we go through every month.
Say it
For
again,
days.
Kari. Okay.
For days, no relief.
No relief. And he only suffered that for an hour.
Exactly.
Okay.
Get over it, Bond.
All right, then. Lashif tells Bond, look, we found the money you hid, but we want all the money, all of it, including that 40 million franc check. We want all the money. Bond is like, well, how you gonna cash the check made out to me? It ain't no good to you. And Lashif says, look, I got a plan. We met after our little game in the casino, and you were such a sportsman. You agreed we could have one more run at it. Unfortunately, you lost, and you was a bit upset, so you decided you wanted to leave Royale immediately. You very kindly gave me a note explaining the circumstances so that I would have no difficulty cashing the check. Fine.
Yeah, he's created this whole story that Bond won't be able to deny when Bond's dead. Can I read a section about torturing men?
Yes, insert that.
So Lashif says to him, yeah, the way we're torturing you, this is the worst pain ever for you. Because with a man, it's quite unnecessary to indulge in refinements. With this simple instrument, we can cause you as much pain as possible or necessary. There is nothing worse. It is not only the immediate agony, but also the thought that your manhood is gradually destroyed. And that, in the end, if you will not yield, you'll no longer be a man.
Ooh. That was deep right there.
So
that's what they said to him.
That's what they told him.
So Lashif continues this torture session. Again, Bond passes out again. This time when he wakes up, Lashif says, are you ready to lose your manhood? Because I'm getting ready to cut it off. He comes toward him with scissors. But Bond hears some slow steps behind his chair. And he's like, oh, somebody in here. Well, it turns out a SMERSH agent is in the room. And he comes in and he tells the chief, your two men, they dead. You's a fool, a thief, and a traitor. And I've been sent from the Soviet Union to eliminate you. The gunman tells the chief he was supposed to die in the most painful way possible, but he out of time, so he gonna have to take this bullet. The gunman shot Lashif and told Bond he didn't have orders to kill him, so he's saved his life twice. But he does mark up his hand, kind of like etches some words, some letters into his hand, and that also was very painful. And Bond passes out. The cut in his hand identifies him as a spy. The next time Bond woke up, he's in a nursing home at Royale, thinking he's still being tortured. So he wakes up like in a fright. And as he wakes up, and the nurse is there, and then the doctor comes in, and they kind of tell him, you know what? You got all your manly parts. You gonna survive this.
This is the chief concern.
That's right.
You can still recreate. And Bond's like, I don't believe you. I can't trust it.
He had his manly parts, and his manly parts aren't gonna be in good condition. He's gonna be in pain for a while, but they're gonna be all right. So the doctor said, I know you probably want to talk to Matthias. Now, the doctor works with the British government. So he's in this organization, too, that's helping him. So Matthias comes in. He tells, and Bond tells...
Mathis.
Oh. Mathis comes in and tells...
It don't matter.
Bond tells Mathis what happened. He said, I saw Lashif shot dead. They didn't get me. Matthias tells... Mathis tells... Bond that Vesper's okay. She's good.
He didn't ask.
He didn't, but he wanted to tell her. The doctor only let Mathis chat with Bond for a few moments. Then he told him he had to go. Mathis came back a few days later, And Bond is like, he's been sitting and thinking for a while. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to resign because this ain't the life for me. He tells
I don't even know who's on the right side anymore.
Yeah, he tells Mathis how he got this 007 designation, which that designation comes from a kill at least. And he had 2 kills. So he tells him he can't tell the heroes from the villains anymore. And so, I'm just out the game. I don't want to do this no more. Well, Mathis tells him, when you get back to London, you'll find there are other Lashifs seeking to destroy you, your friends, and your country. And now, and when you get back, you going to want to protect those people. So that's that. So he's in the hospital a little while longer. Eventually, Vesper starts coming to see him, visit him every day with flowers. Oh, I think she was coming with flowers, but he was turning the flowers away. And so she was kind of feeling the shame and stuff. So eventually she came and she's chitty-chatting and they having a highly good time and socializing. And he is a little ashamed too because, his manly parts got beat up.
All he can think about is he still intact? That's all he thinks about as she's talking to him.
Because women don't serve no purpose for him other than for the pleasure in part. So eventually he's released from the hospital. This nursing home, and Vesper is like, oh, okay, my assignment is to set you up and get you in this place so you can recover, like fully recover, right? So they go over
but talk about the money. This is one part where I was like impressed with Bond. Because he tells her how to get the money, I think.
Oh, he told that to Mathis, how to get the money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he told Mathis. Mathis was like, hey, we looked all over that room and we couldn't find that money. He said, well, it's kind of in there. So what he did was he pulled the room number off the door and folded the check up and put it in there and closed it back.
Yeah, he said every room has its room number in the corridor side. So the outside of the door. So the money's not in the room. Yeah. It's behind the number on the door. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So anyway.
The only time he impressed me.
So anyway, now again, like Bond and Vesper are together. He's supposed to be recovering. She is assigned to help him recover. And then meantime, she feeling some type of way. She was like, he was a little off towards me before, but Bond is like, why she ain't accepting my advances and whatnot? And so eventually she gives way, but she's still feeling some type of way because she started seeing things. She like, hey, wait, I think that man is following me. Us, we being followed. And then she saw the man again. So she's feeling some type of way. She's not really trying to make moves on Bond or allow Bond to make moves on him. She sent him to bed a couple nights by himself or swimming in the ocean, then come back into the room. And then the next morning, Vesper is found dead. And why? Because she was a dirty double agent. She left a note.
Wow.
She was and because of that, Bond was like, I knew women weren't no good no way. That's what he said.
Okay, so the love of her life is being held hostage by, I think, the USSR.
Yes.
So in order to free him, she has to play double agent for the USSR, which she does until she meets Bond and falls in love. Bond is like, I want to marry you. And she's like, me? You wanted to marry me? I'm going to take my life. Because I know the love of my life is probably dead by now because I ran away with you. And then I can't be honest with you about who I am. So I'd rather just not be at all.
And so she, and Bond was like, you wasn't no good woman anyhow. So
yeah,
I'm off to solve crimes without you. The end.
Girl.
That's what happened. Let's take a quick break.
Yeah, let's do it. That was the story in a nutshell. What's your final verdict, and would you recommend this book to others? My final verdict is that no one needs this in their life, and no, I would not recommend it. And maybe I won't watch the movies ever again either, because this book hurt my spirit. When I finished this book, I felt kind of sick. And I had to run like 6 miles after finishing just to shake this book out of my psyche.
Ooh.
So going to the question, which is better, James Bond, Mission Impossible, or Bourne Identity, I will say this book helped me realize that I associate the heroic nature of my leading man with how well they treat women.
Ooh.
There's this weird morality in movies where if a man hits a woman, he deserves to die in the audience's eyes.
Oh.
Once a female character is loved, if a man even slaps her, that man, if no context is given to him, deserves to die in the minds of the audience. And this isn't real life. This is just how it usually plays out in movies. We throw all of that aside for James Bond and these characters like him who are driven by their sexuality and their brassness. They have no patience, no genuine love for anyone else. And to make these characters heroes is just like a fallacy of the pop culture, because it never works out like that in real life. In real life, a man who treats women like this specifically and who views like this, like just the narcissistic level of James Bond, after he's tortured, he's like, I don't even know if God is good. Because something bad happened to me, my existential downfall has led me to the path of not knowing if murderers are wrong, if I'm wrong because I'm a murderer, or if even the devil is wrong, or God is good. I don't know anything because this terrible thing happened to me.
Sorry.
That's narcissistic on a level that I cannot forgive. And then from the beginning, his attitude toward women just struck me as like a potential violent offender against women. And I can never root for him. And more than that, because I don't need to root for the protagonist, but I just felt icky being around him. I don't want to spend time with James Bond. I want to spend time with Jason Bourne. He's so intelligent. He can fall in love. Even though he don't know who he was yesterday, he has the capacity to love someone, to be kind to others. And that's what makes him a hero in my mind. Even the fact that Tom Cruise, for a lot of people, it's just a weirdo. But his Ethan Hunt character.
The character or the person? We talking about characters
No, Tom
here.
Cruise is like a weirdo and a lot. Tom Cruise makes me feel icky when I think about him. Yeah.
Darn.
When I think about what I think I know of his real life. But I can push all that aside for Ethan Hunt, because Ethan Hunt is a man who's driven by more morality. His morality might not fit mine. His principles don't fit mine, but at least that's a man that can be patient and loving to others. He can build friendships, and he treats women with respect from what I remember. Yeah. So those characters, for me, their hero nature is tied to how they treat other people, of those other people being women. So for this character just be so from the beginning, like, I can't get what nothing James Bond is about. I don't care. And if you watch old Sean Connery movies, that's him. That's like, and then for Sean Connery to be like, in real life with Barbara Walters, like, sometimes you got to slap women around. You ever see that interview? It's easy to find. You can Google Sean Connery and Barbara Walters, and he's like, sometimes you got to give him a little slap. They go to break, and Barbara Walters comes back and is like, his wife isn't complaining. It's trash. All that is trash. Ooh. I don't have any men in my life like this, and I wouldn't keep none in my life like this. So I don't want to spend time with a fictional one. I would much rather be into these. I mean, when you talk about the White Rabbit, I would hear his story. Like, although,
but this is his
I guess
story.
He could be a terrible person too.
This is his
Maybe
story.
this is his story.
Yeah. So what are you saying?
Listen, the final verdict. I ain't like this book. I'm done with James Bond altogether, and I would not recommend it. I didn't like this. I didn't like the way it made me feel. Real quick, because now I'm talking about Ian Fleming's James Bond, but just about the illustrations and the way it was rewritten, I don't feel like the dialogue that was added matches with Ian Fleming's level of writing. He has a way of putting a lot of information into concise short statements, and that's a skill. Like, the opening line puts you right in the scene of the casino. So Ian Fleming's level of writing was higher to me than what I read in most of this novel. I even thought there were a couple typos. But for the most part, I thought it captured the spirit of that story from what I know about it. And the illustrations I thought were deeply moving. The way, and it talks about this in the graphic novel too, but the way the illustrator brought light into certain pictures or the way he played on shadows, he is extremely talented. I want to see what else he has. But this story specifically, I'm not into. Okay, that's my rant. What about you? Would you recommend this book? How did you feel about it? What's your final verdict?
Okay, so in early 2020, I mentioned that I started watching the James Bond movies, like from the first, like in order. And I was like, oh, I didn't know this about James Bond. I just don't like these movies, but I don't think he like women. I don't think he like women. So that's what I was.
He hates women.
That's what I was seeing early on. And then as I'm reading this this book, and I also read, what's his name's book? Ian's book. And I'm like, I mean, he don't like women. He like really don't like women.
Which is fine. You ain't gotta like women. It's the violent nature of this dislike that I ain't with.
He's a he-man woman hater. He's got a club.
Yeah.
He is. He doesn't like women. And I don't think it's okay to not like women. I don't think that's okay. Because there's a lot come with that. If you don't like women, you mistreat women, right? It's easy to mistreat people you don't like. So that made me like, oh, dang. So the book is just like that. It's not like slightly different, maybe the book is different. No, it's the same. Them early James Bond and this book,
that's James Bond.
It's the same. Now, when I think about current episodes, I can't remember them so much, but I don't feel like this Bond is like that, but maybe he is, and I just haven't watched it in recent enough time, but I actually wouldn't recommend this book because he's a he-man woman hater.
I love when we agree.
He is truly a he-man woman hater.
And Idris, don't worry about it. This ain't a character you got to play.
Idris is not worried.
I know you feel like you've aged out. Go ahead. What?
Idris is not worried. We talked about it. Idris is not worried, so don't worry.
You talked to him. Good. Yeah. There are other characters. Write a new character. It's fine. Yeah. Or pick up a new screenplay that isn't James Bond. We don't need an Idris Elba James Bond. We don't need another James Bond. And I know it's going to be a woman next time. So is she going to have as much hatred for men as James has for women? I don't need that either. I don't hate men. You're right. It ain't okay to not like women. It ain't okay to not like men. You cannot like children. But
because you can keep your distance from them, right? But
unless you work with children,
then you can't.
Sorry for you.
Not like children. That don't make sense there. You need a new job for sure. But to not like men, to not like women who you come across on the day to day, not a good idea, not a good look. And James Bond don't like women. He has a he-man woman hater club for real.
Yeah,
I'm opposed. So
all right, well, that was exciting. Thank you, Alexis, for opening my eyes to something I never confronted. I guess I really, really dislike James Bond.
Like you do a lot. You might as well write an essay on that one, sis.
So what are we reading next week? It's my favorite book.
Break.
Vacation.
It's a break. But on our break, we're going to have a look back at Warmth of Other Suns Part 2. But we are on a break.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. Yes, you're absolutely right. We'll be on a break next week. However, we are giving you another look at our Warmth of Other Suns Part 2 episode from season 1. And we're going to add a little spice to that recipe. So there'll be some new things in there for you guys. You're going to enjoy it. So Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts, along with a comment about why you absolutely love us. We love you too. And we love you, women.
Yes.
Don't let people just push you around like you recreation. You either, man. Okay, here we go. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society. Visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. Also visit litsocietypodshop.com to shop our merchandise, including our handcrafted candles. And until next time, you guys,
read something.